Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Hopefully everybody's got a few minutes to spend with me here tonight. Hey there, Patriot Preacher, one of my internet YouTube friends. There's about 20 of you guys that I really enjoy talking to. You guys always have something to add to the conversation, and I always appreciate it. Hey, Dirt Farmer, how you doing? All the dirt's frozen right now. We had a nasty few days here. Hey, Candace, Happy New Year. There were some specific things that I want to bring up in this um, video here that I want to mention to you guys that was all basically weather related, prepping things. Monkey Food Garden, I appreciate you all. I appreciate you being here, Monkey Food Garden. Appreciate you, everything that you do for me. I'm sure you're much warmer in East Louisiana than we are here. We're pretty cold here. We had a rain, then we had ice, then we had a cold snap. We had that heavy wind that's basically still going on. Hey there, whatever prepper, back door prepared for. Happy New Year to all you guys. L Dog, how you doing? Well, we had multiple things both here in the state of Michigan and in my local area that I thought was very interesting and all prepping related. And the first one was probably the most catastrophic. Um, and I heard this from some viewers and some subscribers that are over on the west side of the state around Frankfurt. And okay, I'm going to use my Michigan map right here. Okay, so Michigan map, the little pinky over here, this is Traverse City, and the little inlet that goes in is Grand Traverse Bay, right? Frankfurt is on Lake Michigan, just south of Grand Traverse Bay. It's a very ritzy area. There's a lot of money over there, and a lot of people will retire up there. Well, a lot of people have Generacs up there, and because of the storm, because we had 50, 60-mile-an-hour winds, there were 20-foot waves on Lake Michigan. It was a blizzard across the Upper Peninsula. There was no visibility for a couple of days. um, my friend that lives up in the UP, where they are sort of in the central part of the UP. They got 30 inches of snow now. The official totals were like 26, 28 inches, and around Herman. Well, Herman always gets a ton of snow. I have mentioned Herman in a couple other videos, but up by Frankfurt, they lost their natural gas. Their natural gas line went down. So that pretty much made everybody's Generac worthless because there was no fuel to run it. And that is kind of the problem um, with Generacs that are hooked into some type of grid fuel like natural gas. Now, I I'm assuming the folks that had propane um, Generacs were probably okay because they had their own stored fuel on their place and they were good to go. But that's one thing. When most people hook up Generacs, they're going to hook up, especially if they're in more built up areas or they're in small towns or villages, those kind of things. They're going to be hooked into the natural gas because the natural gas is much cheaper than having propane delivered. And you can get propane cheaper, but if you're having it delivered, sometimes you're locked in. There's contractual things there, so that keeps the prices up. So the propane companies can make money. But anyway, they had these massive winds. All the power lines and stuff went down. The Generacs went to kick in, and there was no fuel. So that's something that folks really need to figure in. What if I'm going to get a whole house generator like a Generac or whatever? How am I going to fuel that? And what's the best route for me? Is it okay to be hooked into the grid, because there's not a lot of problems with the natural gas, or am I better off having a 500-gallon propane tank and, I'm completely self-sufficient for as long as that 500 gallons lasts, which might be a month or so. Typically, 500-gallon propane tank, if you're running everything, including your furnace and that kind of stuff, typically you get about a month's worth out of 500 gallons. So that would tell you about how long that would last. Captain Bart, how you doing? Oh, 70 degrees. I can only hope. I'd be planting something if it was 70 degrees outside. Hey there, Scout. How you doing? Oh, yeah, Generacs eat and I have been told that you don't get the same amount of electricity out of propane that you get out of natural gas and like rec fuel or just regular gasoline. And I have never noticed a difference running propane on mine in my circumstances here, but my circumstances, aren't everybody's circumstances. So that was one thing. Another thing, there was a lot of problems with fruit fly. There was a lot of problems with sub pumps and wells freezing. We had a ton of water because it rained. It rained crazy, then it turned to ice, then everything froze. Those are particularly bad situations. There was a kid that I work with. He had problems with his sub pump. He had problems with his wastewater, extraction. He had overflows because stuff malfunctioned. The big thing with a sub pump, if you got a sub pump in your house, you have some type of battery backup for that sub pump because sub pumps go out all the time. And if I had a sub pump here in my house, I would probably even have a spare sub pump here to switch them out because they have a tendency to go out all the time. Happy birthday, Sunset. Boy, happy birthday on the 1st of January. My grandmother's sister, who lived to be 108 years old, birthday was on the 1st of January. So I always thought that was a pretty cool birthday to have. Happy girl, how you doing? Craig Bond, Hawkmeyer Outdoors. It's true. We have a Generac and use about 2 to 3 gallons an hour under max load with central air conditioning running in the heat of summer after the storm. So that's a good, and that's another thing too. You need to talk to people that have generators, and the big thing that, and this is why it's good to know the people in your town, and it's good to know the people and not just your neighbors and stuff, but other folks in your town, in your area, your township, whatever your local community is, whether it's a town or it's just folks out in the country with farms or whatever. It's good to know the local people who tend to the infrastructure in your area. And I knew it was going to be bad because when we had the rain and we had the forecast of the strong winds and everything was freezing, one of the guys that showed up where I work wanted to buy rec fuel, and he filled a couple large containers full of rec fuel because he said he's pretty sure that this one is going to be a bad one. And this guy works for the local power company. So, when the guy at the local that works for the local power company is, buying 15 gallons of rec fuel for his generator, that should tell you something right there. That's a good source of human intelligence where you can find out what's going on in your area and you can react to those issues. And oh yeah, Hawk, definitely another year of prepping ahead. Yep, I too bad you're sick there, Sunset. Stuck in bed with the flu. If you can take a little tea with some raw honey, the if it's the stomach flu or you're upset and you're throwing up and stuff. I was told this by some folks long ago, and I actually read up on it a little bit too, that if you have the stomach flu, that's actually a bacteria, and the cell walls of those particular bacterias get dissolved by the raw honey. Then your stomach acid destroys the bacteria. So when we're sick, we got that stuff. We usually take a couple tablespoons of raw honey plus the extra sugar or the electrolytes in you. That'll help you out, perk you up a little bit. That's another little home remedy there that I wanted to mention while I'm thinking about it. Hey there, Tactical Muffin Top. How you doing? Lots of flu going around. Yeah. Um, there was a upper respiratory thing going around here that pretty much everybody got, including me, back there a couple of weeks back. Hey, Uncle Bumble, how you doing? Oh, tell Mom I said happy birthday there. Boy, everybody's birthday's today, Uncle Bumble. Sunset's birthday is there today too. Stay vigilant, get fit, stack food and water. Oh yeah, and keep your medical conditions under control. Have backup plans for everything. But there was problems too with wells, because cattle, livestock, they need water. And I also heard some where there was well problems for the livestock. If that stuff all freezes up, them cattle, they gotta have water. Chickens gotta have water. pigs got to have water, so the food supply depends a lot on water running up here in these northern states, even in the dead of winter when it's cold. So, backup, you got to have backups to everything. And another thing that happened here right in our village, while this was all going on, there was a water main break and it flooded us. There was one of the lower lying streets was completely flooded. And this was 2 days ago. And completely flooded. So there was low water pressure in town. So then you don't know, is there a boil water advisory? What's going on with that? Those are good times to have water stored and then have some type of water system, water filter system. We got a Berkey here that I've had for years already. It wasn't that big a deal for us. Hey, the water main's down, we might have some issues with water. I just told my wife, my family, hey, you know what? There might be problems with the water. If you want to drink water, drink the bottled water that we got when we're cooking. We're going to take the water out of the Berkey. When we're boiling potatoes or making pasta or whatever, we're going to take the water out of the Berkey. We're going to use that until and I didn't hear anything one way or another that there was any issue with the water, but why risk it? That's why you have preps. That's why you have stuff there so you can react to those situations. So this store here is this storm here that went through here really kind of tested what people's thoughts of preparedness and stuff was. We had generators that didn't work because there was fuel issues that people didn't expect. There were water issues, there was flooding's always a big one. And it's always good too. We have a shop vac, 5-gallon shop vac. And then we have a smaller one, like a 3-gallon shop vac. And those shop vacs are always on standby if we happen to get water in the basement. Now, since I've replaced the roof on the house last year, I had all my eaves and gutters and stuff. I had all of that reworked and I had that taken out in different directions because occasionally when we had really bad rain and the gutters would overflow, sometimes we would get water in the basement. But that's why we have those shop vacs, and there were people dying for shop vacs the last couple of days. There were people calling for shop vacs. There were people that wanted to rent shop vacs, and I can only imagine the reason that was is they had water in the basement and they were trying to make up for the rainstorm we had, plus possibly malfunctioning sub pumps and that kind of stuff. So those are all things that if you're into preparedness, before you start getting into the crazy scenarios, like the zombies and the collapse of civilization and everything, start working out those smaller infrastructure issues is all I can really call them at your place. Hey, what could happen if my sub pump goes out, or if we have any issues with our water, electricity, do we have multiple, and that's part of the reason I've got a dual fuel generator. So I have propane here, that's my number one, but then if something would happen, I can still switch that generator back over to regular fuel if that would have to take place. So you always got to have that redundancy in the backups and the backups. And those are legitimate prepping things that, people just don't, they get into the wild scenarios. And while, I believe a lot of those wild scenarios too, there could be a possibility with a pole shift. There's always possibilities of conflict in this day and age. We're relying on technology more than we ever have been in human civilization. That technology is vulnerable to attack in multiple different ways. We got billions and trillions of dollars worth of debt. How's that economy going to keep on going at this rate of debt? Who knows? It's still going now. But you know what? Those are all good things to consider and think about. But when them storms blow in and there's problems, whether it's like the rainstorm and the freezing, or if you got a really bad heat wave where all the electrical infrastructure is taxed. We got like down in Bay City, and we have bridge issues because the government sold all the bridges out, and then the one bridge they tore out, well, they sold two of the, now there's only one bridge in an area that was used to having four. So there's transportation issues. Those kind of things are going to hit every member of the community more so than some of these wild scenarios that people talk about all the time. Well, it's fun and it's interesting to discuss those different scenarios. I'll tell you what, if you keep those main problems that you've seen in the past and that could happen again in your area, you keep those in mind, you've got you got already a heads up on your preparedness. That's enough of my soapbox talk now. Getting back into the chat here with you guys. Oh, we had a small tornado. They were talking tornadoes in like Indiana, Illinois. Yeah, try the honey, try the raw honey, and I just take it. I just take a couple tablespoons full straight, and that maybe wash it down with a little hot tea because you don't want to pasteurize it. You want to keep it the raw when you take it. Hey, prepper for the ages, how are you doing? I have 2 months of bottled and jugged water at house. Like I said, it's just one of those things. Something can happen, and if they would have issued a boil water advisory, I was already ahead of the curve. We had drinking water here already. And a lot of people don't like bottled water, and I've seen different preppers say that bottled water is a waste of money and whatnot, and I can see their point because it is expensive, but it is one of the simplest things that you can do to prepare is go buy 4 or 5. And I think I figured it out once, like the 40 bottle packs at Walmart. I don't know, there's something like 3 or 4 gallons of water in here. Well, when I get that, we save that specifically for emergency drinking water. So I don't have to mess around with it. I can take a bottle, crack it open, drink it, whatever. But then, we have other water here that we have put up that we would use for cooking, basically stuff like cooking, brushing teeth, a little bit of cleanup, whatever, sanitary things. We have that here. And I don't rotate the water because I would filter any water that I have here in storage is going to get run through the filter before we would even remotely think about using it. And that way, we're good to go. We're good to go for a while anyway. And then I have large containers here to go get water. So then, I know people that have well pumps and stuff like that where we can go get water. Of course, we got the lakes here. That would require some extra cleaning and stuff, but we have all that stuff here, and that way we're sort of ahead of things. And Craig Bond, I have a feeling that the economy might be worse shape in 26. I could not agree more. I just seen something. It was a report. It was put out, I want to say about 2 weeks ago from Home Depot, and Home Depot said that they were down right around 2 billion in sales over the last 6 months of the year, and everything is kind of declining. A couple $1 billion. That's quite a bit of money. And of course, Home Depot, that's construction and remodeling and all that other stuff that feeds other money into the economy, and people are working, and they're remodeling houses and they're building new stuff. Folks are working, but if people aren't buying material, they are not working. You can tell it's cold outside because I got a couple of bugs flying around in here. They love to find the little chinks in the house to get in. So don't pay no attention to them buzzing around. But I'm pretty much betting that next summer is going to be a lot slower in our local economy than what it has been. I think that's almost a given at this point. Candace, I always keep an extra replacement switch for my well pump, but I'm considering getting an extra well pump too. You know, we had a well pump that went out at mom and dad's, and that was not too long before mom and dad moved out of that house. One day the well pump just went up. They're a mechanical thing too, and usually the bearings go out of those well pumps, and that's what had happened with this one. The bearing went out and it just quit. So they know that. Then another thing are the tanks. If you don't have a well pump, or if you're on municipal water or anything like that, there's a tank that the water gets pumped into. There's a certain amount of air pressure in that tank, and then that's what pressurizes. That's what gives you your water pressure at your home. So you have your own little personal water tower, so to speak, and that's provided by the air pressure in that tank. And those tanks go out too. They have a bladder in there. They have a diaphragm in there, and if there's a leak in there, you won't have any water pressure. So that's another thing that people keep in mind. And my grandfather, he actually, and I think I have it here with my stuff somewhere. I remember, when mom and dad moved away from the farm, I remember saving that, but I've looked for it because I was going to do a video on it, and I don't know where the heck I put it. But grandpa had a pump, just a random pump that they could use to like pump water out of a basement or whatever. And, it's about this big. It was mounted on a board, and there was an electric motor that went along with it. So it basically took two hoses. You put one hose in the intake and the other one in the outlet, and you ran the hoses. You set the pump somewhere where it was dry, you plugged in the electric motor to a generator or into your electricity, and you kick the thing on, and it would move water from one place to another. So and again, that ain't that's something that's not bad to have around. If you live out in the country a little ways, there's lots of different uses for something like that. If you have some kind of water problem, you can move water from point A to point B. Every time we have a hurricane, you really find out where the holes in your preps are. Not uncommon to be weeks without power and fuel. Yeah, and that's kind of the same thing up here. I mean, look at those. Look at the folks. I wish Just Us Up North would be in the live stream there. They were right in ground zero with that spring ice storm that happened in northern Michigan. That they were still fixing that stuff in June because so many trees came down, so many power lines, and so many telephone poles were damaged in that ice storm because it went on for a couple of days. It wasn't, here we had icing for maybe 6 hours or so, or 7 hours. Up there, they had icing for like 48 hours straight. So, all the trees were breaking and falling, knocking down power lines and everything. That was a heck of a mess. They said it was probably the worst power outage in Michigan history because that's how many people literally, if you drew a line through the lower peninsula of Michigan, everything north of that line didn't have no electricity for at least a couple of days. And, that kind of stuff happens. And when that happens, that was always something. I know I said that in the other live stream that mom and grandma were always most concerned about ice storms because of the residual damage that would take place after the fact on that. Easy way to keep water is liter bottles in the freezer. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. And then that keeps extra cold in the freezer. If the power goes out, the first thing you do, keep a couple old sleeping bags around or whatever, and throw that over the refrigerator or the freezer. That'll insulate it and buy you a little bit more time, because a lot of times these type of situations, you're buying time until things can get restored. Oh, the roads up here are crap. Yeah, Tammy's got on there. Tammy lives down Detroit area. Roads are hazy. Just yesterday, didn't even count on the plow and the salt trucks. Keep the gas tank full. Yeah, pretty much everybody had the gas tank full around here because we didn't know how we got a new gas tax or new way they're figuring the gas tax here in Michigan. That took effect today, so there's that kind of thing going on. But a lot of the salt trucks and stuff too up here, depending on what county you live in, they won't go out until after the storm subsides. So while the storm is going on, a lot of times you don't get the service on the roads as far as them plowing or salting it. They'll wait till the storm gets over with, and that's especially true with heavy snowstorms. Hey there, Dangerous Freedom. Keep both eyes on the road and hands on the wheel. Appreciate you being here, though. Happy New Year as well. Yeah, I'm sure the freezing here in upstate New York. I'm sure that you guys are gonna probably still getting the same stuff that we had there. That was a heck of a low pressure system. They said that the millibars up by like Alpena, which is kind of toward the northern part of the lower peninsula, it's on the east side. That's where like the um the eye of the low was, so to speak. And they said that was just a couple of millibars off what a category 1 hurricane was. That's how low the barometric pressure was for this last storm that went through here. Oh yeah, sleeping bag. Like I said, if you pick up an old sleeping bag, like at a garage sale or something, keep that sucker around, because you got a chest freezer or whatever. Throw that over top of that. That makes a big difference if the power goes out. And this spring, when things start to calm down a little bit from winter here, I am going to we're going to go through our freezer. We probably got some stuff in the freezer that needs to be chucked. We're going to go through the freezer, and we're going to I only do that every couple of years, but this year I'm definitely going to do it. Go through everything, make sure everything, the stuff that's still good, keep that. Anything that's freezer burner, anything that's old or got pushed down to the bottom or the side, whatever, we're going to discard all that. And then, of course, get any ice or anything that's in the freezer. People don't do that enough. When was the last time you heard somebody on a prepping channel say, hey, you know what, maybe you should defrost your freezer once every couple of years? People just, those basic things are the things that Because what happens? What if you got a freezer full of stuff and half the stuff in the bottom of the freezer is stuff that's been in there for 2 or 3 years, and now you really need to rely on that stuff because something happened and everything's freezer burnt and tastes like crap that's in the freezer. So freezers have to be rotated. I think freezers have to be rotated in a lot more than canned stuff. Canned stuff, I think if you have it in a good, cool, dark place like we have down here in our pantry in the basement, my strategic nutrition reserve, as I like to call it, I trust that stuff a lot longer than anything in a freezer. And then two, the better the stuff's wrapped in a freezer, the longer it's going to last. There's been times I've taken meat out of the freezer that was in the freezer a couple of years and that was still good yet because we had taken the extra time to wrap it or vacuum seal it or whatever that stuff. But a lot of the packaging that stuff comes in nowadays, that's not conducive to any type of storage. Oh yeah, 3 foot of snow near the Great Lakes. They couple of feet of snow between I'd say 20 and 30 inches of snow. Most of the the Lake Superior shoreline, the Upper Peninsula, got that. Hey, Patrice, Happy New Year to you. Randy, Wayne makes a transfer pump like what you described. It has two garden hose connections. Yeah, that's what this one was. And like I said, if I can ever find where the heck I put it, I'm going to do a video on it because I said it's one of those things that it's valuable to have. And then you have the other issues with freezing. Freezing stuff expands, it busts pipes. Now like years ago when it was like galvanized pipes and then the pipes had sediment stuff in them because those pipes would collect. You could have a 3/4 inch pipe and you'll only have like this much water actually going through it because it's collected sediment over the years. Well, then water gets in there, that freezes. Well, then those pipes will crack and break, cause all kinds of problems. In fact, there's even been homes around here where people went to Florida for the wintertime and they came back around Easter and they had flooding because something kicked off, the furnace quit working or whatever, and the house froze and the pipes broke. And then when everything thawed, then the water ran into the basement. They come home to a swimming pool in their basement. So that's all stuff that you got to keep kind of in the back of your mind. And that's thing too, when you have a backup heat source in your home, it's nice to have that in the same area where your pipes and all that stuff come in. And two, you could do something as simple as hang a trouble light, a regular light in with a little bit of a heat lamp on it, and hang that by the pipes. That'll generate just enough heat to keep things from freezing. Turning your water on just a little bit to a trickle, like the size of a pencil lead. Keep that water running so it doesn't freeze. And even different businesses I know around here that when it gets really really cold out, they will do that. They'll have a bathroom in the back or something, and they'll turn the water on when they close up shop for the night, so it doesn't freeze. Just those small little things like that can save you a ton of problems in uh in the long run. Oh, sardines. Eating some Bar Harbor sardines. That was always the thing when we went hunting when we were kids. Is we'd have sardines or those smoked herring, those kippers. They called them kipper snacks. That was the other little canned fish that we had. Of course, I probably wouldn't eat that bear hunting, but any other thing, it'd be all right. Oswego area there. How you doing there? 4109. Lake effect snow warning has been extended for the third day, I believe it. Happy New Year, Scottish Prepper. How are things over there across the pond today? You guys get to be Happy New Year a few hours before we do. We didn't stay up or nothing because we had the grandbaby, so we were in full blown babysitting mode last night, which meant I had the youngin sitting beside me, and Grandpa and the baby were snoozing. Yeah, and it's a good idea. Freezer paper does a wonderful job. If you got a good wrap on, your cellophane plastic and you have your vacuum seal, whatever, then you go over top of it again with freezer paper. That's the way that the freezer stuff lasts the longest for me. Freeze dry a lot of vegetables, store it in Mylar. I was thinking about that one day this week. I made homemade Philly cheesesteaks, and I thought that Philly cheesesteak meat, that thin shaven beef, when it was cooked and seasoned, I thought that would have been a perfect thing to put in a freeze dryer, because then you could just reconstitute that in a crock pot or something, put that in with a little bit of liquid to reconstitute that and warm that up, and you could have like an Italian beef sandwich or something like that. But I thought about that when I was cooking that. I said, this stuff right here would be absolutely perfect for a freeze dryer. Maybe one day I'll be able to get one of them, but right now I'm not sure where I would even put it, even if I did have one. One of the best lock lubricants is called Houdini, made for locksmiths. I've used it. It's great. That's good to know, Randy. Dry graphite is a good cold weather lubricant and it won't freeze. We actually sell at the store there. We've actually sold lock de-icer a few different times. That's something that does happen too, and then people, they'll go do something dumb when it's going to get super cold outside. They'll go and they'll like wash their car, and when it's like 20 degrees outside, and then everything freezes up on it. Look, the car looks good, but then it's a frozen ball of ice, so I don't even worry about it anymore. That's one nice thing about driving an old truck. I don't have to really worry about that kind of stuff. But yeah, those were some of the things that I definitely wanted to mention. Oh yeah, WD-40. WD-40, that's always like, what does the WD-40 stand for? I've heard everything from it standard for, during World War II, it was War Department item number 40, and I've heard that the WD and WD-40 stands for water displacement. I have heard all kinds of different theories of what that stands for, but I don't think anybody ever really knows. They just add to the urban legend of it, and that's something too that's not a bad idea, to keep quite a bit of it around, because it just has so many different uses. I keep what's the other one? It's like PB Power Blast. That's another one. That's a um, like a penetrating oil and that kind of thing. But WD-40, one of those, you can save a lot of money if you buy that in a gallon container and then pour it in your own spray bottle. You could save quite a bit of money, because like a small can of WD-40, hell, that stuff's like pushing between $5 and $7 now, where a gallon can is like $35. So it's, if you use that kind of stuff, a gallon can of WD-40 will save you some money in the long run. Water displacement recipe number 40 is what I was told. Yeah. Yeah, I heard that too. And like I said, it's kind of a toss up between that and War Department item number 40. But like I said, we'll probably never know. Just one of those urban legends. But all that kind of stuff, like WD-40, sea foam for your engines, dry gas, the stuff in the yellow bottle that says heat on it, you can use that for alcohol stoves too. So, that's kind of a double use item. You can use it to get water out of your gas, but then you can also use it for alcohol stoves. And I have used it already for alcohol stoves. I did some of those penny can stoves where you poke the holes in the top of it, and you put your alcohol in there, and you put a penny on the top, and that regulates the air going into it. And it's basically like a little burner. It's basically like a little burner. You make it out of a couple like heavier soda cans, or like those Monsters, the energy drinks. Those, they're like a little bit heavier on the bottom, so they're a little bit easier to work with when you're punching the holes and stuff in there. But I've made several of them already, and they do work. They do work. I think they're just as good for. I think they're just as good as some of the alcohol stoves that you buy, and you can just make them out of spare stuff. WD-40 is not for guns though. Yeah, and a lot of the old timers would put WD-40 on their guns, but then they found out WD-40 does not get along with bluing on firearms. So if you have like a Remington 870 Wingmaster or something, you have something that's a nice blued finish on a firearm, you don't want to put WD-40 anywhere near that, because that will absolutely ruin the finish on that. I I want to say I did do a video on those penny can stoves, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, Monkey Food Garden. But I definitely have showed them already, but like I said, I just can't remember. But basically, you take two cans, the bottom probably 2 inches off of like a monster can, and you put the two cans together. And if I remember correctly, how I made those particular ones, I put a little bit of fiberglass, like fiberglass insulation. I stuff that in there, and then I put those two cans together, and the outside rim of that, I poked holes in that all the way around, and then I poked holes in the center, and then that's where you put a penny on. You take the penny off, you put your heat in there, that goes down in, and then you put the penny on top to regulate the airflow going in that, and you light, and the fumes coming out of those corner or the edge there where the little holes you poked in, that will actually look like a gas burner, like you have on a stove. And that penny on there, when you'll have big old flames coming up, but then when you drop that penny on the center, those flames will kind of come down and it'll turn into a blue flame, just like a regular. Well, then you can use that to boil a little water or whatever. And I find that using those kind of things, that's just as good as trying to use like a sterno or something like that too. Sterno works good too, but that's one way you can make. I'll have to see if I can't find that video, or if I can't find that video, I will maybe do another video on how to make those penny can stoves. That was a pretty popular thing on the YouTube prepping channels, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. I remember there were different people that made videos making them, but I haven't seen it recently. Oh, Frontline Warrior, don't worry about it. Glad to have you here. I will be doing another video. I believe this week's going to be Saturday night, so a couple days I'll be doing another one. You can get alcohol fuel just about anywhere. Yeah, Patriot Preacher. And if you get it at the like at the pharmacy, get the 91%. The 91% isopropyl alcohol, it works really good. That much better than the 70%. The 70% doesn't work really good. We always call WD Weasel Whiz. That's funny. Happy New Year. Hey, Silverback, how you doing? Oh, don't worry about being late. It's all good. Just check WD-40's website. WD stands for water displacement. Well, there you go. You heard it here on Modern Refugees live stream first. There is the official. I appreciate you doing the legwork on that, Scout. Oh, that's all right, Monkey Food Garden. Like I said, I don't know. I might have had it when I first started doing videos. I would sometimes have a couple of different things in my videos, and then I wouldn't have didn't name the stuff right, so it was harder to look for. But I'll see if I can. I will see if I can't do a video on that again. Like I said, that's something that people could easily make if they had to. Oh yeah, my chest rig vid. People enjoyed that video. I actually had quite a few views on that, more than I thought I would get on something like that. I've got multiple chest rigs. I've got the big Helicon Tex one. I've done a video on that. I've got my Hill People Gear chest rig that I run around with quite a bit too, and I've got that modified to hold a couple of magazines. That's really good for a lightweight if you need to carry some other stuff too. But that Blackhawk rig that I got was just the pouches across the front. It's very similar to that Chicom. It's kind of a more modern version of that old Chicom rig. What is it? It's like 81 model, type 81 Chicom rig. And that's kind of like what they used in Vietnam, where they had a little tie in the back and then it had magazines in the front. And I've got a Rhodesian rig that's similar like that too, that's made for the larger magazines, like for my M1A, or if you got FAL or whatever. I've got one of those, and it's got the D-ring in it, so I can loop the thing through it and just cinch it tight. And that's made out of a real heavy, like khaki canvas. But that it only has the 4 pockets, and that's just specifically for 308 magazines. And like I said, I keep that one for my M1A, but that's like an old school actual Rhodesian rig, because most chest rigs, the great grandfather of chest rigs, are what they call go back to the Rhodesian rig that they used in the brush war in Rhodesia. But that's where a lot of that stuff came around, and then a lot of that stuff was copied off the Chicom rigs that they had, that the enemy used in Vietnam and stuff. Modern, do you mind to give a shout out on my channel? I am going to do some simple prep videos this year. I sure can, Hawkmeyer. We'll just do one right now. If you guys get a chance, head over to Hawkmeyer's. When I'm done with the live stream, I'll pop over there and make sure that I'm subscribed to him as well. Hill People Gear. I have got a couple of Hill People Gear. I've got a junction pack that's what basically my EDC get home bag. I carry that around, and see that little brown bag back there that says Modern Refugee on it. That's actually a piggyback pouch that goes on with that junction pack. So I got that junction pack, and if I want to carry a little bit more gear, I can throw that piece on there, and that gives me another pouch probably about this big and about that thick, perfect for like I typically will carry food in that. Like if I'm hiking, I'll put food in the front of that and get the food out of the main part of my pack so I can keep like extra clothes or whatever in that. And then I have that Hill People Gear original kit bag, and then that integrates with that backpack. So if I want to wear it all together, I got clips up on the top where I can clip that onto the shoulder straps of my junction pack along with that pack, and it's a regular system. And I paid, a couple $100. I want to say I paid $200 for the backpack. I paid like $75 or something for that extra pack behind me there hanging up. And then I want to say I paid like maybe $150 for that chest kit. But you know what? That stuff has been just solid, absolutely solid. Used the heck out of that stuff. When it gets dirty, I throw it in the wash machine and I wash it, and I just been running. It's got the real wide straps on when you're carrying it, so there's nothing cutting into you. It's made for hiking. It's good stuff. And if I had $500 doing absolutely nothing, I probably would go buy myself the next larger pack from Hill People Gear, because you know what? I don't know. Once you start using that good equipment, it's hard to go back to the Walmart stuff. I have two Condor Recon chest rigs, 6-pocket Molly webbing in the front. I like them close to the chest and inexpensive. And I got a knockoff one. I don't know. It's like an airsoft knockoff of a Travis Haley chest rig. I got that two off of Amazon. I don't know, maybe about 5 years ago, something like that. But it had a little bit too much stuff on the front, and I actually ended up taking a seam ripper and I took some of the pouches off of it, so it's a little bit more streamlined. The problem with chest rigs, if they get too big and you want to lay down prone, it's hard to lay down prone when you have all this stuff. That Helicon text chest rig I got, it's awesome. Holds 8 magazines. It's got pouches on the side for medical. It's got a pouch big enough you could put a canteen cup in the side of it. It's great if you're standing up and walking around. But if you got to lay down in that thing, boy, you got this much stuff that's sticking out of your chest that you have to contend with. So like for standing around somewhere, keeping an eye on things or whatever, that it's great. But if you got to lay prone, it's not so good. I use a plate carrier and not a chest rig. There's nothing wrong with that either. I got a plate carrier too. Uh, Thank you, Martin, for the shout out. No problem, man. Anytime. It's all good. I have a Black Hawk rig also. Works for Clash mags and AR mags. Cool. Um, the other thing, too, when it comes to, you can spend a lot of money on them chest rigs, and then you're trying out different things. And I don't like to get into the ice. That Helicon Tex, I probably paid the most for that chest rig as I did anything else. The Hill People Gear, I don't look at that stuff so much as tactical stuff as it is actual just hiking and outdoor gear. But sometimes when you're poking around like a military surplus store or something like that, sometimes you can find, pouches, you can find things that might be good. I had another chest rig here. It was a Condor one, and I had like this Velcro snap thing in the front, and I never really cared for that because it never really worked as advertised. But it held magazines great, and I actually did some hiking stuff in it where I just kind of stuck random gear in it and whatnot. But a lot of that stuff, it pays to really like try it out. So if you got a buddy that's got a particular chest rig or something like that, try that stuff out and see how it worked before you go ahead and spend the money on that. The Condor has no. I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with that Silverback. That one. It's just the suspenders. It's got the cross things in the back, and then it's just flat. It lays, and then it's got your 6 mag pockets. And I want to say it's got like Molly on the front of it or something like that. Wow, original use for WD-40 was to protect the skins of Atlas missiles. Wow, that's different. I never knew that either. Feed the birds and squirrels for your survival food. Oh yeah, that's true too. And deer. You know, if you got an apple tree or something in the backyard, you're probably going to have deer that are coming in there even in the middle of the night too. I've got deer that come out here on our place, and we're technically in town, I guess, but we got deer all over the place around here because when hunting season starts, the deer move into the village where they're not hunted. But if it came right down to it, I probably wouldn't hunt. If it came down to it, the hunting rules no longer applied. I think most people would do some kind of trapping because they wouldn't have to sit out there and spend their entire time out and about. But things like snaring, and you can snare pretty large animals too if you do it right. That kind of stuff is what you would see happening to tap into any wild game that might be left after the apocalypse, so to speak. The 40 in WD-40 was the 40th time it was concocted. Makes you wonder what WD-41 would be if they would have kept tweaking their formula. Maybe it'd be something even better. Oh, this is another good item. If you guys have ever used this stuff, but this stuff right here works really good too. This is a good kind of all-purpose cleaner lubricator to have around. And then might as well show you all of them. I got them all here because I can't show the actual firearms on the live stream. YouTube would ban me for life. CLP, and I've actually got CLP. These are actually the military. That's actually the little military holders. I got a couple of these at I want to say a military surplus store for like 25 cents or something. And then I just got the bigger containers of CLP and I just put that in there. M7 Pro is another one that I've had pretty good luck with. And I have, I'm not sure where it is now, but Slip 2000 is the other one that I use. Slip 2000 is the other one. I don't know where the heck I got that bottle right now, but Slip 2000. It's called EWL. It's probably in my probably in my range bag. But anyway, Slip 2000 works really well too. But yeah, I pretty much used all these. I know some people don't like the CLP and stuff anymore. There's more advanced stuffs out there, but I've never had a problem with CLP. And the good thing about like CLP that I've noticed too, like if you clean a barrel on a firearm and you think you got it clean, you take a damp, um, a little square cloth that's soaked in CLP, and you run that wet down that um, rifle barrel or shotgun barrel, and you just leave it overnight, and then go back and run a clean patch down there. That CLP, if you put it on the gun or the rifling or whatever, it will actually pull more impurities out of the metal if you like leave it in there for like 24 hours. And that's what I would do. Like if I clean whatever, one of my firearms, when I'm all done cleaning it, I'll take a little patch with CLP, run it down there, leave it set, and then the next day go back and run a clean patch through it. And that's my final cleaning then. Is ballast all natural? They say it is. Multi-purpose, lubricates, eco-friendly, skin safe, no carcinogens. And that's another thing too. A lot of guys, if you're doing a lot of cleaning on firearms and stuff, a lot of guys will wear nitrile gloves just to protect their hands because there's some funky chemicals and stuff that's in some of that stuff. Hawkmeyer's Outdoors. We have a huge maple blight in my area. The steel has been running overtime. That sucks because maples are good for. My wife and I were talking about that today. That them first couple warm days that we get in February, I might put out the taps this year and tap, and because I haven't made any syrup in a year or two. Everything 2 years ago with my father-in-law and stuff passed away. That was right the time when he needed to be out there collecting sap. But this year, if everything works out all right, maybe when we get that first warm weekend in February, I'll go tap some trees. Dog by my grandfather said in the Depression you didn't see any animals because people hunted them all. I've heard that too from the old guys around here. Of course, there was no deer around here during World War II. and the Depression. They came around later after all the woods had been cleared and everything kind of went to brush and started going back to agriculture. But the old farmers and stuff that I knew that had relation and stuff during the Depression and World War II, they actually, because you couldn't get ammunition. You couldn't get ammunition during World War II either to hunt because everything was going to the war effort. So the guys that had ammunition, they would go up north, like around Houghton Lake in the center part of the northern part of Lower Peninsula. They would go up around Houghton Lake and they would hunt for a few days, and whatever they would get, they would bring back then. But they, knew that World War II was coming around, so they had a little bit of ammunition stockpiled. So they had, bullets for their hunting guns. And then because they were farmers, they had ration coupons um, for their farm and stuff. So then they use those ration coupons for the fuel that they needed to drive up north to actually shoot deer and then bring those deer back. And that was about the most common hunting story that I heard during that took place around here during the Depression and World War II. The farmers would actually go up north and they would do the hunting. And then the other thing that was big around here was pheasants, because pheasants were everywhere back then. And since they started all the modern agricultural practices, that's what's pretty much taken care of, the pheasant population. Michigan used to have a huge pheasant population, just like what South Dakota and stuff is now. But because all the fence rows got tore down, they started using all the herbicides and pesticides and stuff, and that stuff all affected the ecosystem and the environment. So the pheasant population went by the wayside. There still are pheasants around here, but it's more of a for the couple that you see. It's not worth shooting them. I know guys that do pheasant hunt around here, and I've shot pheasants and stuff around here too. But I just kind of you just don't see that many of them. But I had people that said that they would drive like into Saginaw or they would drive into Flint, like back in the late '60s, early '70s, and they'd see a couple hundred pheasants out in a field, all feeding toward evening, and they take the cornfields down and stuff. And that, to me, that would be just crazy because I've never seen more than a half a dozen pheasants at any one given time, basically my entire life. Oh yeah, CLP break free Hoppies number 9. Oh man, that Hoppies number 9 smell, that was the sure sign that it was hunting season when you'd walk in the house and you'd smell that smell. I use high temp wheel bearing grease and ballast on all my firearms. The only two firearms that I use grease on, M1A I use grease on, M14, and then AK. I'll put a little red grease on AKs. And I tell you what, if you got just a thin coating of grease on some of the moving parts there in AK, that bolt carrier group on AK, man, that thing is just as smooth as butter when you rack that, and that's kind of what you want. Hey, Liberty Garden, how you doing? Yeah, Ballastol, it's not cheap. I mean, I paid $12 for this can here. What is it? It's a 6-ounce can. I mean, but a can like this lasts quite a while. But it is really a good product. And like I said, you can use it on other stuff too. You don't have to use it just on firearms either. Amazon has Ballastol. We got a local hardware store around here that carries it. That's where I get mine. But yeah, Amazon's always a good place to look. Oh, quail. The only time I ever shot quail, we went to a pheasant ranch and they actually had quail released on there and they let us shoot them and it tasted good. I liked it, but the darn quail, hell, they're only like that big. You don't sound like you get a lot of meat off. You get like two chicken nuggets off, one off one side of the breast and the other one off the other side. And I've only seen bobwhite quail maybe 3 or 4 times in the wild here. There was one time when I was probably about 14. There was like a small little group of them that we seen them in the fall because mom would always feed the birds and stuff, and we had, I don't know, maybe about a dozen of them, and we didn't even know what the heck they were. And mom had bird books there and she looked them up and that's what they were. They were bobwhite quail. But I was about 13, maybe 14 years old. And then of course a couple other times when I was out in the woods after that, I seen like a single one or something. It's the same thing with woodcock. You'll see woodcock, maybe one or two, or a couple of ruffed grouse, one or two. Now you get up further up north, seeing grouse and partridge and that kind of stuff, that's pretty more a lot more common, especially like you get into them clear cuts and stuff. You'll see more of that stuff. But here where we're at here, you don't see a lot of that stuff anymore. Mm. My Mac 10 loves grease. Awesome. Old school Mac 10, Miami Vice days. That Masterpiece Arms, they make a Mac 10 like knockoff or something. I've looked at them already, but they're kind of cool, but I don't know what the heck I would use them for. They're just sort of a range toy to a certain extent. Now if you could get something like that that had a little bit of a stock or something on it, and then you're talking it might be a little bit more useful. But and of course, anything to make a firearm more effective for the end user, whether it's a suppressor or whatever, that's all they got that all regulated. But yeah, I just wanted to mention those things here, because it's another year of prepping ahead of us here. We got there's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on. I mean, the economy, I can see where the economy is slowing down. I think there's going to be nothing but problems economic wise here in 26. There's always the natural events and stuff, and then there's always the geopolitical BS. What the heck was it yesterday or whatever? Um, they use drones to knock out the power in Moscow. Now, can you imagine if something like that happened here in the United States? That somebody would send in a bunch of drones off the eastern seaboard or something and knock out the power to Washington D.C. That there'd be panic buying like you ain't never seen nothing like that before. Once they would report that and that got out, I see that about that there in Moscow. I'm thinking to myself, and Moscow is a huge city. There's millions and millions of people in Moscow, and that for a bunch of $100 drones to knock the power out in a major urban center like that. That's crazy. That's the changing face of warfare. So how that kind of stuff is going to become more and more prevalent, I think. And I really am surprised that conflict over there in Eastern Europe hasn't bled over into something else, and that just keeps like ongoing, just like it was when in Afghanistan and stuff. It's just an ongoing conflict. And even if they say it's over, it's probably not going to be over. That's just going to continue. Oh, I definitely Monkey Food Garden. There's just eventually some of this stuff's going to come around. And I think probably the economic aspect of it, I mean, look at silver and gold, 80, what is it? 80, silver's like $80 an ounce or something right now. That's just insane. I got a little bit of silver here that belonged to my parents and stuff yet, and I've never had any, inclination to get rid of any of that. But that's an insane price on that stuff. You got $80 for most of the places that I sold silver to over the years and stuff, because I bought silver eagles and then sold them again, when the price went up or whatever. But a lot of it was gosh, what if spot price is like $80, that's for face value for junk silver, that's got to be like 70 to 1. So if you take in $1 worth of junk silver, they'll give you $70, probably be between 60 and $70 what they'll give you for that. So if you take in 4 silver quarters, that's what they'll give you. Like all the coin shops around here are pretty much closed up. You got to drive into the city if you want to see, go into an actual coin shop anymore around here. But that was another thing that, like, even as much as like back in 2012, 2013, there was still three different coin shops that were just right around here locally where I knew you could go, buy and sell silver eagles or sell silver coins, which you had or whatever. But that's not a good sign when that kind of stuff goes up in price, because that means that the dollar is not as worth as much as what it used to. It's the same thing when gas prices go up. When gas prices go up, gas prices have been actually really mild, and I think that they've been keeping them low like that, especially here in Michigan, because they're going to mess with that gas tax. But when you see the price of that commodity stuff go up, that means that the dollar doesn't have quite as much buying power. At least that's how I always interpreted that stuff. And copper is insane. Copper is absolutely a roll of copper just to do some basic wiring. It's over $100. They're 10 foot. A 10-foot chunk of 10-foot chunk of like whatever, like 14 2 wire or something like that. That's like $40. And that just blows my mind, man. You just and if you need a larger amount of copper, like you need 100 feet or something like that, you better take your credit card because you're gonna need it. Yeah, that's I've heard that too, that, it's industrial uses for the silver or whatever. Yeah, I've heard that, and I know that was a thing when I worked at the big box store way back in the day, and they did all the, film developing and all that other stuff. They had vats where they would actually collect the silver out of those, fluids that they used to develop, um, pictures with. They had and that stuff was all, like, saved in these special, like, little locking containers where they could somehow draw the silver back out of those, different solutions and stuff they used, and that was they came around every so often, they picked all that stuff up, and what the store ever got back for that, I'm sure they got something back for that. I never heard exactly what they ever got back for that, but that was a thing. Yeah, the copper pennies. There's quite a few people are talking about that they're saving pennies and stuff, but most of the pennies anymore, those are just washed. They got like a copper wash on them. That's not an actual. Was it 83? Is I think when they stopped doing the higher contents of silver. Any wheat pennies are probably worth saving though, because those are still old school. But I can't really see where you're gonna take a bunch of pennies into a coin shop and you're gonna have any coin shop give you, anything for that. Plus pennies take up a lot of space. So, but just the way that it goes. Another step toward electronic currency, which they've been trying to push down our throats for decades already. And that's another thing. Eventually drive us all into a black market economy where barter will be the new thing. Monkey Food Guy ran power to my shop, and the copper wire for 100 feet was going to be over 1,000. But I believe that. I believe that in a heartbeat. Old school. I've seen some different old houses and stuff that had aluminum copper or not aluminum copper had aluminum instead of copper in for the wiring. I know that the electricians don't like it. I don't remember right what they said, like the aluminum that it gets brittle or something. So if they got to rewire anything, the stuff cracks and breaks. At least that's what I've been told. Well, guys, I appreciate you all being here and spending an hour with me here this evening on this kind of cold, nasty day. But I wanted to start out 2026 on the right foot and get with you guys and have a little chat. I appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to spend it with me here. But I will do another live stream on Saturday, and I've got a couple videos planned. I got a one on magazines, and I think I've got that edited to the point where YouTube will let me put that out. I got another one on kind of talking about some different issues and problems of stuff I've seen with different firearms platforms. That's a little bit longer video, but I really kind of got in depth with that one. I want to edit that and get that out for you guys as well. Hopefully, YouTube don't tap that video too hard either. And then I've got I want to do a, summer sausage video with the old school muslin casings, where they would pack the meat after it was cured in a muslin casing and then smoke it. But I know different old women who would actually make those muslin casings to make their own summer sausage. So I'm going to see if I can't reproduce that from my memory for you guys as well. Show you guys how to do that. So that's stuff that's going to be coming up here hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, we're definitely going to have another winter camping trip where we, test and try out the gear as always. But appreciate you guys out there. Hope you guys always get some information, some entertainment, some good talking points and stuff here out of the videos. Just always trying to um, put the spotlight on basic preparedness to help people out. But anyway, appreciate all you guys out there. Hope you guys all have a happy new year. And I will see you on another live stream this weekend. You guys take care.